God is. It's like, you are finally doing what I created you to do. Thank God. Thank myself. But we must, for that to happen, we must be willing to say yes. We have to say yes to knowing who we are. We need to say yes to living the life that we were created to live. The spiritual truth is we are forever, always, being called into greater understandings of who we are, into greater fulfillment of our reason for being, otherwise called our purpose. It's a constant. We're never done with that. Our soul is always longing to express more and deeper and greater through us, as us. And it doesn't stop, which is pretty great. And joy, that's our joy. That's God's joy. We could say that another way and say that life is at all times inviting us to come into a greater expression of itself. Life with a capital L. Which means greater joy, greater love, greater peace, greater flow, greater understanding, greater connection. Our mission is to say yes to all of it. There was once a young couple, they were on their first date, and at the end of it, they arrived at her front door, and with bravery and courage, the young man decided to try for that important first kiss. So he places his hand against the door jamb, being very suave. He leans in and whispers, "I really had a great time tonight. May I kiss you goodnight?" Horrified at the prospect of getting caught, his date replies, "Are you mad? My parents will see us." "Oh, come on," he says. "Who's going to see us at this hour?" "No, please," she said. "Can you imagine if we get caught?" "Oh, come on," he said. "There's nobody around. They're all sleeping." "No way. It's too risky," she says. "Oh, please, please. I really had a great time and I like you a lot," he says. "I like you too, but I just can't." "Oh, yes, you can," he says. "Please, please, just say yes." And with that, the porch light goes on, the front door flies open, and the girl's younger sister, standing there in her pajamas, hair a mess, in a sleepy voice says, "Dad says to go ahead and just say yes and kiss him. Or I can kiss him, or if need be, Dad will come down himself and do it. But for crying out loud, somebody kiss him so he'll take his hand off the doorbell." You know, God is constantly ringing our doorbell, right? Inviting us to say yes to expanding and enlarging our capacity to know who we are and to experiencing our reason for being here. We're always being called, come up higher, come up higher. Could we just say yes to it? The 13th century poet Rumi once said, "You can accomplish 100 other things, but if you do not accomplish the one thing for which you have been sent, it will be as if you have done nothing." As if you have done nothing. It's a pretty powerful statement. And we could amass great wealth. We could demonstrate great authority and power. But if we miss knowing who we are, who and whose we are, if we miss knowing that we are God in expression, and if we miss sharing our own unique gift in the world, it will be as if we have done nothing. Author Sandy Daly, in her book Successfully Mid-Air, wrote, We all have a purpose which is intertwined with our dream, and one can't exist without the other. So if I were to ask you right now, what is your purpose? What is your deep dream, the dream for your life? Would you be able to answer it? And if I were to ask you, what are your divinely guided actions, the steps that you're going to take to get there? Would you be able to answer that? On the soul level, you already know it. You know your dream. You know what you came here to do. And every dream you have, every longing that you have to express some greater way than you might be right now, it's your soul's longing to thrive, to do what it came here to do. It's what Joseph Campbell meant when he said, follow your bliss. Your bliss, the longing of your soul, it has to lead the way. But it doesn't mean it's always easy. Before I went into ministry, I had a good paying job that I liked. I had a solid marriage. I had 3 kids. I had what looked like a pretty stable life. Rick knew me back then. But it wasn't enough. Something was missing. And I didn't know what it was, but I knew I wanted something different. It was this like longing, like kind of pushing out through me. So I went into ministry, through a series of events that occurred. The good paying job went away in ministry, sadly. It can't pay a lot, but the marriage went away. The kids grew up. And all through that time, I would ask myself, what is wrong with you? Why are you giving all that up? All that security, all that stability, why are you giving it up? And I spent a whole lot of time asking myself, what's wrong with you? Until I realized this desire for something different it wasn't coming from my brain, it wasn't just coming from a lack of contentment on the ego world. It was my soul's desire to thrive. It's what it was longing to do. There was nothing wrong with me. Maybe the only thing wrong with me was how long it took me to cooperate with it. So once I surrendered to it, in little baby steps, the way became clearer. It's more joyous. We often spend more time planning what to eat for dinner than we spend planning our lives, right? And if we don't have a dream or a vision for our lives in some form, then we will create the life we've always known. We'll just keep doing the same thing. So what would it be? What would it take for you to begin to let your bliss lead the way? What would it take for you to say yes to your soul's desire to thrive? What would have to happen? Of course, once you make that, say yes to that, the limited-based ego mind, that part of us that wants to stay safe, that really likes the thing it's always known, it will emerge to take charge of this whole project. And it will either take on your dream as a self-improvement project, complete with a plan and an organizational chart, which those things are helpful, but if it comes from The ego, you're not going anywhere. The soul and the ego really don't communicate. The ego's job is to keep you safe. So if your soul is longing to express, ego goes, but wait, we got to keep it safe. We got to keep it here. We got to do it this way. You're probably not going to progress that far down your path. Does that make sense? You understand? And of course, the ego in this scenario is the CEO. Or this is another thing that happens when we say yes to following that nudge. The ego will send out flares of warning. Danger, danger, Will Robinson. That you're venturing into uncharted, potentially perilous territory. So what's the remedy for this? Okay, you said, okay, I'm going to listen to that thing that's in me that's telling me to go forward. And then ego comes in with its very loud voice. The remedy for ego's attempt to hijack your dream is to notice it. Notice that no matter what ego, brain, monkey mind is trying to say, that inner desire in you to thrive is still there. It will not go away. You can ignore it all you want, but it doesn't go away. You just notice it. Just notice. It's always there. It's who you are. The Vedic teachings from India describe the moment that we glimpse the possibility of living a different life, the moment we see, I could do this different, that's the beginning of it happening. That tells you it's in motion. We have now seen that the way we have been living will not truly satisfy this innate longing of the soul to thrive. The way we've been living isn't supporting the longing of the soul to experience bliss, fulfillment, freedom. So now that we've seen it, we've had that glimpse, we can take the action steps that lead to the fulfillment of that deep dream. We start to ask, okay, looking at the choices for my life, the choice in front of me right now, does this support my desire to thrive, or does it not? We can start to look choice by choice and let the soul lead the way. This is a process. We start to notice, just notice, and do. Just make our choice. Say yes. So here's the question. It's a big one. Are you willing to say yes to your purpose? Willing. That's all I asked. Are you willing to say yes to your vision? And are you willing to take those action steps that the divine is leading you to take? Because if you have a deep dream, just a way of being in the world, whatever that is, it's what your soul already knows is possible for you. All you need to do is be willing. There's great power in being willing. Saying you are willing is saying yes to divine grace coming in to support you in living this deep dream. Just be willing. When you are willing, you open to Spirit. Spirit says, okay, here we are. So if you are willing to say yes, there is a parable that describes what's going to happen next. And it's in a book entitled The Dream Giver by Bruce Wilkinson, and it goes like this. Once upon a time, there was a nobody named Ordinary who lived in the land of familiar. One day, Ordinary received a very big dream from the dream giver. He said yes to the dream, which meant that he had to leave the land of familiar to pursue it. Sound familiar? The story goes on as Ordinary gets to the edge of the comfort zone of the land of familiar. he sees the wall of fear. He struggles with his deep fears and then finally realizes that he can actually step through the wall of fear. He didn't think he could, but he tries and he does it. As he steps through the wall of fear, Ordinary then enters the borderland. And there he meets the border bullies. And he has to keep these border bullies from determining who he is and what he can accomplish. But he is successful, so he continues on. Next on his journey, Ordinary enters wasteland. This is a time of loneliness, emptiness, and separation with no apparent guidance from the dream giver. He feels all alone. He's scared. But he keeps walking. He keeps putting one foot in front of the other. By putting one foot in front of the other, he eventually gets out of the wasteland. Then he reaches the Valley of Giants and he finds all these giants that he must defeat. He feels small and weak. But the dream giver suddenly reappears and reminds him that any nobody who can get this far is actually a somebody. And all the truths he's learned and all the experiences he has had will serve him well. So Ordinary perseveres. And when he defeats the giants in the valley, he accomplishes his big dream. So, as the story tells us, saying yes to your purpose, yes to your vision, and yes to your action steps isn't just the end. When you say yes to those, we have to stay with it. And most likely, you're going to next need to face your fears as you leave the zone of comfort, encounter opposition from those around you. You know, when we change, people get nervous. Endure a session of difficulty that tests your faith, and we're talking more about that next week. Fight the giants that stand between you and the fulfillment of your dream. And then, only then, will you reach your full potential as you achieve your big dream. But you will achieve it if you keep going. But guess what? There will be another dream, so you'll get to do it all again. So let me remind you what the first thing was on that list. Face your fears as you leave your zone of comfort. The words "fear not" appear more than 80 times in the Bible. Now, I don't know, some people say there's more. It's the most often used phrase. Maybe, I don't know. But one of those times is when Jesus said, "Fear not, little flock. It is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom." The kingdom is living your dream. But spiritual teachers tell us that fear is a belief in lack and limitation. That fear is a denial in the power of God as the source of all. That while we live in the middle of plenty, we live in want because of fear. And all those things are absolutely true. But while you are divine, you are still absolutely human. And fear is a natural human emotion when you're up to something big. As a matter of fact, it's the signal you are up to something big. So while all those spiritual truths are nice and all those things, it's kind of on a head level. And maybe some of us will get to the point where there is no fear. But I think even in the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus demonstrated a little fear, did he not? Fear is okay. Fear is part of being human, so you let it be. The more you try and fight it, the more power you're given it. So you say, "Thank you for sharing. I'm still going down my path." You don't fight it. You are more than your fears. You are more. Know that you are up to the adventure of your soul's desire to thrive. That's what you came here to do. And that's where you'll find your bliss. And you're not walking this path alone. Spirit is with you every step of the way. I love God's message to Moses. You know, Moses is just such the hero. You know, such an ordinary individual who followed his deep dream, did what was his to do. And God's message to Moses was, I am with you, I will guide you, and you will be changed. That's the message to us too. God is with us, God is guiding us, and we will be changed. We just have to say yes, and maybe stop fighting. Stop fighting what our souls are telling us is ours to do. I want to leave you with a story of a poet who was very ill. He went to his doctor to discover the cause and the cure, but his doctor could find nothing physically wrong with him. The doctor then said to the poet, "Sir, might it be that you have a poem in you that needs to be written, but it has not yet been?" And the poet replied, "Why, yes, doctor, I believe I do, but I'm afraid it isn't very good, so I haven't yet put it on paper." The doctor then said, "Go home and write your poem. After you do that, come back and see me if you need to." The man didn't need to return after he wrote his poem. We have to do the same. We have to express ourselves in the ways in which we are intended to express. As the author Genevieve Barron says, who I quoted at the beginning of the talk, she says, we were intended to grow in understanding as to who we are as expressions of spirit. We are intended to know that we came from the creator of all life, that we are to glow with the purpose of our being, and to then flow that purpose into fulfillment, thereby becoming a more and more perfect center through which the creative spirit of life can enjoy itself. How the creative spirit of life can dance through us. May it be so. Namaste.
Namaste.